Hey folks, how you doing? Dave McRae here. So this is an addendum video to the live show that I did just a couple of hours ago. And the reason why I'm doing this, it's not the first time I've done addendum videos before. I usually do them because there's something I realize that I left out. And I'm like, oh shit, that's really important. I need to talk about that. Or it could be too because, I'll realize that when I'm talking about something, I'm a little messy and I'm like, I should have been more focused. I should have been more compartmentalized. I just didn't like the way that I was talking about that. And that really is the case here. So I was skimming through my live show, as I often do, to make sure that everything looks and sounds okay. And I happened to skim through the part, not past the part, but through the part where I was talking to Wolfman's Got Nards. So shout out to Barry for, I guess, kind of in some way inspiring me to do this standalone video. Because I don't even know if I've really talked about this as a standalone video before either, but I think it's a fascinating sort of thing. So anyway, we all know that Barry is, or Wolfman's Got Nards as he's known, is a big Halloween H20 fan. And actually really likes that we see Michael's eyes in the movie. And to him, that was a really important part because he feels that, it's important that we see his eyes in the movie because Michael is no longer a mystery. It helps to demystify him. And it's really important when Michael and Laurie lock eyes on each other for the first time in 20 years through that small circular window, right? Really, really, really important. And so the whole eye thing doesn't bother Barry, and he's got his reasons why. And I was sort of trying to, albeit not in a, again, I was kind of all over the place. I wasn't focused. So that's the point of this video. But I also wanted to get your thoughts, people's thoughts out there. Halloween H20 fans, Halloween fans can jump into the comment section and let me know as well. And I'm sure, hey, if Barry sees this, he can jump in and let me know as well. So, of course, I think I kind of already know what he thinks, but I love Barry. He's great. So my argument is that, trying to be more focused here, is that I understand what Barry is saying, but I disagree with it because to me, it all comes down to intention, right? What is the intention of the filmmakers? So if the intention from Steve Miner and Kevin Williamson was to demystify Myers and show his eyes like this. We see Chris Durand like that a lot, right? Through the mask. To show his eyes like that, to demystify him so we can have more of a connection to him as an audience and for the character of Laurie specifically, right? So we can see his eyes and we can see his eyes looking at Laurie. You know what I mean? There's that connection, right? The eyes are the windows to the soul, as they say, and all that kind of stuff. If that was the intention, then that is something I can get behind in the sense of that I think to myself, well, it's clearly defined. That was the intention. They can back it up. That doesn't mean I agree with it. I think it's completely unnecessary and I still don't agree with it, but I can look at it and go, well, you know what? I guess that's the intention. But it's hard for me to get on board with that when I don't believe there's any evidence for it. And I think that, unless, like I mentioned, unless there is an interview with Steve Miner, Kevin Williamson, Jamie Lee Curtis, I don't know, somebody who can say that was our intention. We wanted to show his eyes and his eyes often because we were trying to demystify him more, especially for that moment when Laurie, then okay, then I will eat my foot and be like, all right, well, I was wrong. But I still don't agree with the creative decision. But at least there's intention there. There's thought there. They're thinking about it. They're not just arbitrarily, doing shit. But I cannot help but feel that this was arbitrary, that this was just simply, we just want to show his eyes. We just want to kind of get that out there and show his eyes and not having to worry about, are we seeing his eyes, not seeing, let's just not fucking worry about it. If we see his eyes, we see his eyes. If we don't see his eyes in that shot, then we don't see his eyes in that shot. They didn't want to worry about crafting shots and crafting the lighting in a way that would allow you to not see his eyes. And because that takes, and again, I'm purely speculating here, but that does take more effort to craft your shots and craft the lighting in the ways where you're conscious and paying attention to that. So for me, I noticed that the light just went out. Even the light's telling me to shut up. For me, it just feels too arbitrary. And when I hear Barry's thoughts, when I hear your thoughts, Barry, I mean, it totally makes sense. It's logical. It makes sense. I don't agree with the creative decision to do that. But it's hard for me to get on board with something like that because I don't believe that's what they were doing either. So it feels disingenuous. It feels like, well, we're just gonna. I'm just gonna say that so I can justify and make myself feel better about watching a movie where we see his eyes every 10 seconds. That's how it feels to me. So I would need, like, again, it just, because then anybody can say anything. I can go, okay, well, that's how you feel. Well, I think they're showing his eyes a lot because he just wants to show off that he's got new eyeballs. He's hoping that people will notice. And he's hoping somebody will be like, hey, wasn't he fucking shot in the eyes? Why? And that's why he's like this a lot. You know, he's like, hello. And then every time he's not in front of somebody, he's like, hello, fuck. Why is nobody noticing my eyes? What the fuck? There is literally just as much evidence for that being the intention than the fact that we needed to demystify him more. Obviously, I'm being satirical to make a point, but I need to me, it's not real unless there's intention behind it. And that's kind of how I feel about it. Now, two other things. I do know that we see his eyes in Halloween 2, and I do know that we see the bottom of his lids at the end of Halloween 1 after he sets up and does the head turn. He's walking towards Laurie. I know, and I don't like him there either. But why do I not make a gripe about it? And why do I gripe about it with H20? Well, I think it's because Halloween, obviously, and Halloween 2 from 81 are just better Halloween movies. They feel like Halloween. They look like Halloween. They sound like Halloween. I like Dick Warlock and obviously Nick Castle's portrayal of the Shape. So the few moments, especially in part 2, there's only one part in part 1. Well, I know he takes off the mask and it's, Tony Moran and whatnot, but certainly in part 2, when we see his eyes a bit or we get the catch lights in his eyes a bit, I don't think it bothers me because everything else around it is so strong. Right? It feels like Halloween, looks like Halloween, smells like Halloween, walks like Halloween, tastes like Halloween. So you kind of forgive it a little bit, even though if I was shooting the movie, I would take those things out. With Halloween H20, it's too Scream. It doesn't look like Halloween, doesn't feel like Halloween, doesn't smell like Halloween, doesn't taste like Halloween. It feels like, as I always say, Michael Myers walked onto the set of Dawson's Creek. And I think that's why largely I get a cosplaying Michael Myers feel when I look at Chris Durand and when he's walking around. It doesn't look like Michael Myers to me. His eyes are like this through the mask and he's got a bit of a fro and he's walking around. It just feels like it's somebody's friend named Jim who's decided to... It's no disrespect to Chris. No disrespect to Chris. I don't know Chris. I'm sure he's a fucking awesome dude. But it's just the way it was shot, the way it was lit, everything. He might even agree. I have no idea. I don't know what his thoughts are. But he might even be like, yeah, no, I know what you mean, or whatever. I don't know. This is not a knock against him. It's just purely what they presented. And I think that's why it's less forgivable for me in a movie that doesn't look or smell or taste anything like Halloween. So that I wanted to mention that too. The other thing I wanted to mention too is this whole idea of using the crutch of, and by the way, I'm not saying Barry did this or does this. We're not talking about him now. I'm talking about just in general. I love Barry. I've never seen him do this. He's too smart to do this. But I think there is a section of the population out there that tends to use it as a crutch, the whole idea of Michael's ambiguity. And, well, he's Michael Myers. We don't need to know. He's Michael Myers. We don't need to know. Well, yes, in that first movie, it was set up that way because there was never going to be a sequel. So it wasn't lazy writing, as some people have reached out to me, in the past and have tried to say to me. They're like, it's lazy writing. No, it wasn't. It was designed to be a one-off movie. That whole film has a beginning, a middle, and end. The characters have complete arcs in that movie. The message of that movie is you can't kill the boogeyman. He was designed that way, and everything you need to know about Michael is in those Dr. Loomis speeches. It wasn't lazy writing. It was intentional. It was absolutely on the point intentional. It's because they made sequels where everything began to fall away. And Carpenter knew it. That's why he never wanted to do part 2. He's like, well, I don't... But of course, he wrote part 2. Money. So although we can point to certain things and say, we don't need to know that because it's Michael Myers. We don't need to know that because it's Michael Myers. We can't do that for everything. And case in point, Halloween H20. I do think it was the wrong move, even though this doesn't bother some people. They don't care because I guess in their minds, Michael Myers and it's not needed. But this is a sequel to Halloween 2 from 81. And even in the original Halloween, when Laurie stabs him with the coat hanger and he takes off his mask, it's affected him. that coat hanger has fucked up his eye, right? So why are we not seeing his eyes fucked up in Halloween 2? Why isn't that character continuity not carried over? Well, we know why, but why, right? That's rhetorical, but I think you get the point of what I'm trying to say. And then of course, not being burned and that kind of stuff. It's too fluffy. It's too cartoony to me. It's too taking advantage of something that was very specific, that should be used for very specific things in very specific moments as it relates to Michael Myers, and taking it and exploiting it for everything. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can do it for certain things, but there are still certain things that need some sort of an explanation. You know what I mean? Like after the guy went, I never found his body in Halloween H20, maybe he takes the other cop into a room and, the other cop was like, what do you mean they never found his body? He's like, what do you mean? What? Well, listen, in 1978 or blah, 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 whatever, right? And there's a bit of exposition. He tells kind of this little thing, not a lot, just maybe like, a minute or two. And, and the guy's like, oh, fuck. And there's a little bit of that, oh, that's weird. It's weird. Just to give a little bit for the audience. I mean, even in part 4, it's preposterous, in a coma for 10 years. Small little burns on his hand, but you forgive it because it's acknowledged. Oh, there's burns on his hand. Obviously, in a Raging Inferno like part 2, he'd have stumps, okay? He'd be dead. Let's be honest here. But at least there's acknowledgement there. You're like, oh, okay, all right. You know what I mean? He's been in a coma for 10 years. That's where he's been, right? There's explanations there to just kind of take advantage of the ambiguity of the character and say that, I don't know, they never found his body and he's not burned and his eyeballs are perfectly fine. And that's lazy writing. That's lazy writing because they didn't want to do the bare minimum, which just show his eyes fucked up. Like maybe when he's looking at Laurie through that circular window for the first time in 20 years, you see his eyes, but they're kind of fucked up a bit. You know what I mean? He's turning his head and it's just like, oh, like she's looking into those eyes, remembering what she did 20 years ago, remembering though, oh, your eyes are fucked up because of me. Your eyes are fucked up because of me. You know what I mean? And he's looking at her going, remember this bitch? Remember what you did there, you fucker? You know what I'm saying? Maybe some of that, play into that a bit more. At least it's justified. And we as an audience can go, okay, yeah, it would probably be worse than that. Or he'd probably be, but okay, at least, okay, all right. To not acknowledge it at all, like this is a brand new movie, like he's just some guy. Again, cosplaying. It doesn't feel like Halloween to me. And so it's important that remember that, yes, it's important we understand that there's an ambiguous nature to Michael's character. There are certain things to his character that do not need explanation. But they're very specific things and very specific reasons as to why, and should only be used in very specific circumstances. Otherwise, you're turning him into a cartoon, and there are no rules that are established. There's still, in that first movie, there were still rules that were established, and you need to still abide by the rules set within the universe. The second you start saying that, I don't fucking know, and he's just perfectly it's like, it becomes too cartoony for me. Anyways, my name is Dave McRae. I've gotten that off my chest. I think I went as long as I did, even longer than I did actually in my live stream, but I felt more focused, more on point here because I had time to think about it a bit more. Shout out to Wolfman's Got Nards. Always love seeing you in the chat room, man. You're an awesome dude. And folks, now it comes down to you. Comment below. What kind of Halloween fan are you? Do you side with Barry and you're like, no, you know what? I think Barry's bang on. I think, it doesn't bother me, man. Doesn't bother me. I think this, that, whatever, and all that kind of stuff. Or you kind of like me where you're like, I don't know. I kind of want to feel this. I want to feel that, or whatever the case is. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. Hey, if you want to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all down there below. Check them out until your heart's content. And when your heart is content, check them out again. Let me know your thoughts. I want to know what kind of a Halloween H20 fan, or how do you see that angle of Halloween H20? It's always fascinating to discuss this stuff with Barry over there. He's got some interesting theories and some interesting ideas as it relates to this movie. Always cool. Anyways, folks, in the meantime, in between time, I will talk to you guys soon. Alrighty, cheers.